Hey crafters! Even though Christmas is over, I still want to do some work on my nativity scene diamond painting. I'm going to go ahead and jump right in today. I'm going to start with these minus negative signs, and this is actually a really pretty burnt, dark lighting today, sorry. That is kind of a burnt clay, dark orangish brown color. It's not that bad of lighting. That's what I'm going to start with, and it is DMC 919. So when I saw these pyramids, it made me think of the time I moved overseas for the very first time, and I went to Egypt, and that's what I'm going to talk about. Now the story might be longer than this tiny little village with pyramids in the background, but we'll see how our timing works out. And I also have the camera kind of on my left as I drill to the right, so I might end up blocking the light a little bit, but just to tell you guys all the setup. Anyways, the year was 2009. I had been dating my now husband since 2006. So we met, started dating in 2006. In 2007, he moved overseas to Egypt to begin his master's degree at the American University in Cairo. And we decided that we were just gonna be long distance. And I'm happy to say it worked pretty well for each other, for both of us. I mean, I was working all the time since I had gotten out of college, and it was this time between college and figuring out what else I was gonna do. He was starting his master's, and we did this for almost 2 years. Now at the time I was like, oh my gosh, a long distance relationship for that long. Wow, can you believe it? And it was like, no, that was actually just the beginning of some much longer distances, much longer time apart. But then when I was in 2006, I was 21, and a few years later, anyways, I'm not gonna give into ages, but he went overseas in 2007. He came home, of course, for Christmas holidays, and he was home for the summer, and then he went right back, and he was working on his master's program, and I was working and doing other things. So in 2008, you had the whole issue with the stock market and the housing bubble, and it was a mess. At the time, I was working for the Smithsonian. I was working for their Native American museum, and I was working in their photography collection department. What I was doing is they were making all of their images digital. So I would have the card catalog of images, I would have the picture in front of me, and I had to put the information from the card catalog into the computer for the picture. And I did this for months and months and months, and then everything went, chaotic in 2008. And there was like spending freeze, all this stuff. And I started to see people that had been at the Smithsonian for much longer than I had getting notices that they had lost their job. So the fact that I was just a small little person in the photography collection doing data entry, I knew the writing was on the wall. I knew that when this project was over, I was either not going to give another one. I knew I probably was going to get fired before the project was over. They had multiple people working on it. They didn't need multiple people working on it. The writing was there. So in January, wow, I'm already done with the minus sign. Okay, I'm going to move over to K. In January, I was told that as soon as the project was complete, my part of it, I was out of a job. I wasn't going to be working on anything else. They were just going to downsize, and when it happened, it was like, okay, I had prepared for it, and it is what it is. And this was also like more than 10 years ago. So I'm not going to be like, oh gosh, I was so heartbroken and upset. I was upset, but I mean, I knew it was coming. I wasn't trying to live in denial. So at one point, I think I planned, or I was able to tell the work was going to take me, I'm going to do 7:20, maybe 4 more weeks or something. And I think by February, I was out of a job. So all this started happening really quickly. And I remember the exact day. I remember everything, so I'm going to go into detail. I was talking to my boyfriend, now husband, on the phone about how this is happening and like, I need to find another job. What am I going to do? And he puts the idea out there. Oh, this is Kay. Crazy, this is actually showing up lighter on camera than it is in the tray. He's like, well, why don't you just move here with me? And at the time, we had been dating, and I was like, what? You want me to move in with you? Oh my gosh, like move to Egypt? What? No, come on. All the while, absolutely loving it. I'm like, he really likes me. He wants me to move across the world for him. Oh my gosh. And I was like, wow, this is a big deal. Not only is it me, going and I know I'm out of a job. I need to find another job, transitioning, this change in life. Should I move overseas? Like, that seems like a big deal, like really intimidating. And after the conversation, I needed to go to a public library. I'm in my car and it's raining and I'm driving to the public library. And shortly before I get there, a Gwen Stefani song comes on the radio, and it was one that was pretty popular then. And I'm not going to sing it in my videos because I don't know the rules about singing in YouTube and music, but I can tell you the song was her What You Waiting For song. And it's playing, and I'm just kind of singing along. And the lyrics now, that song is very special to me because I got to the library and I didn't want to get out of the car because it was a song I liked and I'm still listening to, and it just kind of hit me of like, I'm saying like a lot, I apologize. It hit me of, what am I doing? Why I should just go. I should move to Egypt because this is the perfect time in my life to do it. I don't have a job. I do have a little saved up. The cost of living in Egypt was so low. I could do this. And I called him and I'm like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to talk to my parent. I'm going to talk to my family. And I'm going to do this. I made my decision in the public library parking lot, which has set me on this path of all of those decisions led to me being here in Germany. I'm going to do the little side arrow. That's 3827. And from there, it went quick. I finished up my job. I went, and I think, I don't remember when I went, maybe the end of March or the beginning of April, probably the beginning of April. I went with a suitcase, and I flew to Egypt. I'd never done a super long haul flight like that. I did it on my own. I showed up, and the instant airport culture clash hit me, but my boyfriend told me, I keep saying my boyfriend, it's so crazy to say my boyfriend, he's now my husband, but at the time he was my boyfriend. He told me what to expect. He told me it's a very busy airport, it's quite chaotic, there are no lines, everyone will push and shove in a circle. The customs border guy who will check your visa will just randomly grab a passport. If he grabs your passport, you go, kind of deal. When I landed as an American, I just walked up and got a visa from a visa office in the terminal. I did not need to get my visa ahead of time. And thankfully, I was kind of waiting in line, trying to fit in, really just dealing with getting pushed and shoved and trying to make my way up front. And I believe somebody saw me and they just kind of pushed me over to the front a little bit more. And then the guard, or whatever the proper term for the person at the airport checking passports and visas, saw my passport, picked me pretty quickly out, and I was able to get on my way. And even at the baggage claim, he told me to prepare for this, and it happened. Somebody grabs my luggage. And I'm there with the trolley, I'm waiting for it. It comes out, I start to pick it up, and they grab my luggage out of my hands, and I'm like yelling, no, you're not gonna take it. Because what they'll do is they'll grab your luggage and they'll like try to push it out to their car or their taxi, and you're really kind of stuck with that one person. It's like, I don't need a car, I don't need a taxi, I'm getting picked up, I'm doing my own thing. So I'm doing this like tug of war with my baggage, like, no, like grab it out of his hands and put it on the trolley. And I'm like, okay, this is the first 20 minutes. This is the first 20 minutes. We're going to do this. I wheel the trolley out and I see him, and we go, and he changed apartments. I visited him at one point. Actually, when I said I've never done a long haul flight, I'm thinking of the first one. The first time I went to Egypt, I visited him on spring break. Not a couple months. He left like August. My April or March college spring break, I visited him. So I'm getting my trips confused. But when I landed, we went to his new apartment. He was sharing with 2 other people, and it was a really nice place. I mean, there was a lot of space, a lot of room, kitchen, big living room. Really nice. I ended up meeting the landlord. The landlord was really nice too. We did not have a good interaction with the landlord at the first place he lived at. I'm not focusing on that trip. I'm focusing on this one. But I moved overseas, and I was there for about 3 months. The first month, or the first 5 weeks, was living in Egypt. And he made it pretty clear. I mean, he was going to be going to school, and if I was going to be there, he didn't want me just sitting in the apartment all day. But it's not the kind of place where I should be walking around on my own, because it's not the tourist area. It is the everyday life neighborhoods, and there is a bit more attention that is given to women when they walk around. So he didn't want me to feel like I had to be in the house, but he wanted to stress, like, I don't think you would feel comfortable going out and about. Let's find something that would be really great. And I'm like, oh, well, you take Arabic lessons down the street where you live. Can I take Arabic lessons? He's like, yeah, sure, perfect. So what I would do 3 days a week, I took Arabic lessons. I took Arabic lessons on the days that he was in class in school, and I would go to my school, and that's how I started to learn a little bit of Arabic. My Arabic is terrible. I feel like it's deteriorated greatly since I haven't been in a country where I've needed it. And even when I did speak it, people would just be very, very polite and understanding. I never was able to put together a proper grammatically correct sentence. I would just say the different nouns and string all the nouns together, and then people could kind of understand if I'm like taxi, go, grocery store. You know, you understand what I'm asking for help for, but I'm not properly communicating it. Anyways, so the first month I did that, and we'd kind of hang out and see the city in the evenings, and it was so fun. I mean, I got to live in a foreign country. I got to be there with somebody who really at that point spoke the language and understood the culture, so I got to have really great experiences. Got to do all the fun things. Did get to go to the pyramids. At the time, you bought a second ticket for $20. You got to crawl inside the pyramid to where the burial site was. All of that, so cool. We traveled around Egypt. Got to go down to Luxor. Got to see a lot of beautiful temples. Valley of the Kings, hottest place I've ever been in this entire world. I've traveled all over. Valley of the Kings was the hottest place. Don't know if I could ever go there again. It was in spring, and it was dripping sweat, hot. And that was a really good time. And then the rest of the time, we backpacked through the Middle East. And all of those are just stories I could say in themselves. I'm gonna do N next. Maybe I will just kind of do the P and wrap this up. That's a short drill with me. And then, so we're backpacking. We went to like a beach city in Egypt. And again, at the time, I had a little bit saved. He was a student, but when you were working with an exchange rate of $1 US to about 6 or 7 Egyptian, what were they called at the time? Egyptian guinea. I'm not sure if guinea is the proper term for the currency anymore. But it was affordable. It was easy. You know, we could spend, I could go to the grocery store and really spend $2 on dinner and then breakfast and lunch. It was affordable for us to do on the limited budget that we had. And we went to like a backpack city. Oh, you know what? I'll take this here. We went to a backpacking beach city. We were there for a couple days. It was really nice. We're at a dinner, a really, you know, beachside kind of nice chill out restaurant. And this was a more touristy place. And he was just like, oh gosh, I need to go to the bathroom. My stomach hurts so bad. And I'm like, oh, okay, poor guy. He comes back later and he's like, yeah, I feel totally fine. We end up backpacking after that. We take a boat into Jordan. We backpacked through Syria. We drove through Turkey. We backpacked through Iraq. We did a lot on that trip. It was in Syria that he proposed. And that night when he was at the cafe and he's like, oh, I don't feel well, I need to go to the bathroom. And he ended up being gone for a while, and it makes sense if he says he doesn't feel well and he's in the bathroom. No, he used that time to actually call my dad. And it was so sweet, asking my dad permission to propose. It was a really good trip, and I think that propelled everything else. Us living overseas, us with the willingness to have this job where we move all over the world. We're moving all the time. He's traveling for work all the time. Not so much now because of the coronavirus, but he was traveling. And it kind of all goes back to that moment, sitting in my car as it's raining, as I'm waiting for a song to end at the public library. And it just gave me this confidence of, I'm going to do this. And look at us now. 3 kids in the Foreign Service. I'm spending my days crafting. We're crafting together. We're talking. It's crazy how everything works out. Decisions from a long time ago always bring you to where you are. It's definitely the positive, optimistic way of looking at everything in your past and realizing it all had to happen for you to get exactly where you are. And I was like, you know what? I've got pyramids on this painting. I'm just going to talk about being in Egypt. Now, don't get me wrong. Everything in Egypt was not rainbows and flowers and sunshine and kittens. The pollution in Egypt was actually pretty bad. So it took me a while to get used to it. Oh, are those R's or P's? Might have gotten that letter wrong. So I did get sick a bunch. I often have like a runny nose, a stuffy nose from the pollution, or my throat would hurt. At the time, I'm trying to impress my boyfriend, but it was a very different culture. And there was one day I didn't realize that he was home, and I had been at school and I was walking home, and these 2 men on a motorcycle were like following me. And they reached out and touched me, and they were yelling at me. And I just started crying that it was a lot everywhere you go. I am 6 feet tall. At the time, I think I had like a little bit more blonde hair, and I'm walking down a street with no other tourists. I stuck out like a sore thumb. So there was that really bad day, and I just was crying, and I came into the house, and he was like, what happened? I'm like, no, these guys, they were following me. And he was really upset, and he like goes and he checks the street. So there were some rougher moments, and Egypt still remains the only place in this world that a complete stranger just walked up to me and spit on me. Yep. I was in Tahrir Square, and we were walking, me and him and I, and an older woman just came up to me, and she's like talking, and she's upset, and she spits on me. And of course, I'm there with my boyfriend, and I'm trying to make everything seem like, oh yeah, no, I'm really cool. I can handle this just like you. Yeah, it's no big deal. And now, 12 years later, I'm like, oh my gosh, Egypt still remains the only place someone has ever spit on me. One of those random stories that comes out every now and then. Okay, so I'm gonna do art, 7:45. I'm just gonna kind of pick them out and fill in this space here, and then I'm gonna call the video done. A short one today. The next video, I don't know what I want to do. Maybe one of the white doves in the trees or some of the little lambs that are at the bottom. But I'll just pop on and do videos as I can. We'll chat, find some random travel international story I can tell you about. Oops, sorry. Move the canvas and the phone. And these pyramids are done. I didn't do the outlining, so maybe that's something I can work on in between my next project. Just get this brief little bit of outlining and maybe fill these last parts in. Okay. A short one today. I am gonna get going and I will talk to you soon. Bye, crafters.